Hi, I'm Michelle Morris, and this is After Addiction. I wanted to start this channel because in the last 18 months, I've lost 3 people to addiction. I'm in a unique position. This channel is going to be good for you if you're an addict, you're in recovery, or you consider yourself to be an enabler, codependent. You know, there's a great debt of gratitude that I have to pay here to organisations such as Al-Anon, AA, those Mark groups and 12-step groups. They're fantastic, but what's been kind of bugging me as a therapist is a public sense of connection, So to introduce my channel to you, it's for you if you're thinking about quitting whatever substance or behaviour is upsetting your family, your friends, your loved ones, your colleagues. Or, this is the beautiful county of Cheshire, look, up by the allotments. This channel is for you. If you have a loved one struggling with addiction, if you've realised you've got across that sort of unfathomable, and you've not seen it, it's unfathomable bridge. Try saying that without your teeth in. There's this kind of bridge that you've gone across that's moved from caring about the person that you love or into enabling them, so they don't see the natural consequences or they're shielded from the natural consequences. I wanted to do this video because there's a culture of shame, silence, fear. And some of that, has protective mechanisms, but I want this space to be a community. I want your comments to share some hope, some strength and some humour, I feel I've got a kind of interesting perspective. I feel I've got a kind of interesting perspective on this. A child of a reformed and recovered addict. I come from a lineage of people who have misused substances. I've lost my uncle 18 months ago to long-term alcoholism. My best friend, we buried him last week. So this channel's raw, self-serving in some way. There's a lot of support that we could give to each other. Now here's the disclaimer, this is not a substitute for therapy, nor is it therapeutic necessarily. We are here to discuss what's going on, to share some humour, to share some hope. So today, I want you to just think about doing one thing. If you feel that you have shielded a loved one or a friend from the natural consequences of their addiction, then please just do one thing. Next time they come in under the influence or drunk or asking for something that you no longer can provide, such as money or a place to stay that compromises your safety or those in your household, just notice. Try this one thing. Don't do anything. I'd like to see in the comments below whether you've tried this and what was the outcome, I've heard various stories in and out of the therapy room of people cleaning up messes when loved ones have been in hospital, or been arrested, or for some reason gone out of their place where they're staying and the relatives have moved in, friends have moved in. It's all from a place of love. It's all with the best intention and they've cleaned up the mess. This is the sort of thing that, counts as enabling. All I want you to do is notice, add your comments below. I hope this channel can, if it just encourages one more person to get help, one more person to reach out. We're going to be discussing perhaps where we can be honest and where we've perhaps confused enabling with empowering. We thought maybe we were empowering our loved one, and actually what we've done is empowered the addictive behaviour because we've shielded them from the consequences, those natural and those which may not have seemed fair, but they're under the influence. I remember something that was said to me many years ago when I was dealing with a very close family member who was in active addiction. And it was said to me, look, don't do anything that that person could do for themselves if they weren't so under the influence. So I'm not talking like, if they've had 1 or 2 drinks, maybe you could still put the tea on. No, it's sort of, if they can drive and they're no longer driving to an appointment and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon because they've drunk or because they have, under the influence of something. That's the sort of thing then that a lift, a favour, yeah, those sorts of things are care, aren't they? They're basic care. But when it's gone too far and it's like a felt sense that something is off, it's best to do nothing. When we love our relatives and our friends, we want to fix everything that goes wrong in their life. We need to recognise this is not your pain, not your pain to carry. Empowerment breeds empowerment. So for a relative or friend who perhaps has been out, they've faced a consequence, you know, their room's been trashed or something like that. It's best actually to let them see the natural consequence of that behaviour. And it's really difficult when we've been a caretaker, perhaps we're a parent, you know. I want to hear from you if you're Gen X, particularly like me. I want to hear from you if you're Gen X. You're the sandwich generation. We've got elderly parents, children perhaps still at home or at university, bills to pay. And because we're not a park bench drunk, you know, the bottle of Chardonnay on your sofa watching Corrie is a very similar predicament. Maybe one that's not as stigmatised, but it's certainly becoming so. So when I was drinking too much, I didn't think that I could. I thought that being understanding psychology, being a solution-focused hypnotherapy would save. So I'm Michelle Morris. I'm a solution-focused hypnotherapist. I'm an addict in recovery. I've been an enabler. I've been one after the other concurrently. I've studied neuroscience. I've studied person-centred counselling, all sorts of techniques. I pay a huge gratitude to those organisations that already support addicts and their families and their friends, us enablers and us codependents. But what I wanted to bring outside of the therapy room, the things that I've learned from being in that privileged position of having shared lots of this with people, couples, parents, usually one-on-one or two-on-one, you know, a couple or a parent and child will come to the therapy room, and that's a privilege. And it's also, I wanted to find a way of bringing that outside of the therapy room. You can connect with me later on. You know, I'll put everything in the comments. You can contact me if you live in the UK. I can do Zoom calls. If you live in the UK, you can come and see me in Manchester. You can come and see me in Northwich and Alderley Edge. I want this to be a community. Leave me your comments, particularly about what you've just noticed. You're going to do one thing differently this time. Next time they come in pissed, steaming, you know, or they've been involved in that addictive behaviour or whatever it is that's got out of control, I want you to do less. I want you to just notice, write it down perhaps, write it in the comments. We want to be respectful and respect the space of the person who is struggling. So be mindful about the way that you communicate that. I've asked permission from my family to share what I can with you because it's been a harrowing journey. And I feel this community may save a lot of time. You know, you may be able to pick up on the lessons that it took me 30 odd years to get. I grew up in the 80s, 90s. There was all sorts on offer, you know? I grew up with great aunties who gave out Valium like they were sweeties because they were prescribed. You know, we were an addicted nation. We always have been. So let's not pussyfoot around anymore. Let's, you know, talk about it in a way that reduces stigma and shame. I'm going to tell you one thing about shame. Everyone thinks that they're the only ones ever felt it, but it's not. That's not true. We all can experience shame. We all done things we are ashamed of, I'm sure. I know I have. So join in. Let me know what you're struggling with. Let's see if we can build this community together. After addiction, let's talk openly. And for those who we've lost, or my friend, my uncle, who've just gone on in the last 18 months, may they all go in peace. May your loved ones and friends go in peace. May, in your recovery from enabling and from codependency or addiction, may you go in peace. May, let us all continue peacefully, sharing experiences, maybe even some humour. You see, what addiction does, it rewires the brain. It rewires the brain. We're going to talk about that more in upcoming episodes. We've got 10 episodes in this first series, and then I want the second series to be shaped by this community, shaped by the things you want me to cover. I am a solution-focused hypnotherapist. What I know about therapy for me is that it changed my life, saved my life. I don't abandon myself anymore. I don't seek that instant reward and gratification anymore I used to get from alcohol. You know, I'm Generation X, so it's a perfect storm of being 50, menopause, teenagers, pandemic, and my wine consumption kind of went off the scale. Not for the first time. You know, you'd think you'd learn. You'd think I'd know this stuff. And because I thought I know, that's where the belligerence comes in. It can't possibly happen to me. I've got an understanding of this. I've got a lived experience of helping, family members, friends, buried people close to me. I live in a northwest town, a post-industrial upbringing, hard men who drunk pints, lots of hard men who could drink like men. Women had to be ladylike. And of course, an act of rebellion then was being able to drink a pint. An act of rebellion to the Gen Xer was to be able to handle your drink. And it never really suited me. When I was at university, I didn't actually drink because I realised that it made me thick. I wasn't going to do as well. I wasn't into the party scene. I was a bit out of step. But later on in life, when you're lonely, hungry, angry, tired, all those triggers that they tell you at the 12 steps, yes, your drinking can get out of hand. So hit like and share, follow me. This is After Addiction. I'm Michelle Morris, a solution-focused hypnotherapist. If you want to connect for private sessions, I'll put the details in the comments below. Let's kick this off. Remember, one task this week. When your loved one or friend shows up in active addiction next time, try and do nothing, or less if it's too difficult to do nothing. Just notice, write it down, share it if you can. Till next time, may you go in peace.